Hello, good evening, and welcome to a Fatback 4 special where we're going to have a bit of fun, look ahead at Liverpool versus Manchester United rivalry over the years. We won't worry about the game. No interest in that now at this stage. We'll have a look at the team. So, yeah, I'm the host, Keith, as usual here, and I'm joined by regular Gar Breen below me. Gar, how are you?
Oh, Keith, good, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Good. We're only talking there an hour ago, so we won't waste too much time going over the field. We're representing Liverpool, but we're actually going to be representing Manchester United on this pod. And to join us, I've brought on two lads that are Man United fans that do their own podcasts, and I'm delighted to be joined by Keane Franey from I always get this wrong, Keane, the weekly Armchair Football
Kickoff podcast.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. I don't know how you came up with the weekly Armchair. It's a great pod. I've done a few shows with Keane on there, and it's brilliant stuff. You know, I do enjoy them. It's good crack. It's respectful stuff as well, which is something that we're big on here. So delighted to have Keane on here for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely delighted to be here. And look, it's great to be on kind of a Rivals podcast and see, different perspectives from different clubs. Like, it's great to see, especially being a United fan, to be able to come on the Liverpool podcast and be absolutely respectful and cordial. And the fact that the topics we have tonight are fantastic. So absolutely delighted to get started.
Brilliant. And I'm also delighted to be joined by Thomas Elliott from the Offside Trao Podcast. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, absolutely, Keith. Only going, since the summer. Only kind of a newish podcast, but glad to be on today. I'm glad I'm on this season and not last season anyway. I don't think I'd have accepted the invitation last year, however.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We've got you on and you are in a position of strength, but look, it is what it is. There's always next season. I've said that many a time. Congratulations on second, by the way, lads. You don't get a trophy for that shit. But anyway, look, as we've said, right, it's always respectful in here. The chat does be hopping, and the guys in the chat, they love good opinions, knowledgeable opinions, but if anyone acts the maggot, they'll be getting kicked out. So just so we're clear on that, there won't be any nonsense going on in the chat. The boys have come on to have a bit of crack, and I think it's only fair that we show a bit of respect as well. So look, the idea for tonight's pod came to me. I was talking to someone, I won't name him and shame him, but he mentioned to me about such and such a player. I'll name the player. He said to me, he goes, Eric Cantona is the greatest player in Premier League history. And I nearly fell off my seat. I'm like, Eric Cantona, are you joking me? I says, he's brutal, he's terrible. He's a symbol of a player. As an actual player, no, not having him, right? The boys will disagree, but they don't get to pick Manchester United on this. We do. But it gave me an idea really of how rival fans see opposition players, and while I'm joking there about Cantona not making the cut, it's not that I don't rate Eric Cantona, it's that I rate other players higher in Manchester United's history, and I just thought, let's have a little bit of fun and see, so I'll get two Liverpool fans, myself and Gary will represent Liverpool, and we're going to pick what we think is the best Manchester United 11 of the Premier League era. And vice versa, the two lads are going to give us their Liverpool 11s of the Premier League era. And we won't all agree. There'll be choices in each team that will raise hair. I don't have hair, but if I did, it would raise hair. And people in the chat can throw in their suggestions and their opinions, which is brilliant, So, hold on, we have Mohammed's not happy about this. Don't start the pod off on that note. Chief Cantona, greatest ever Premier player. You're going to roll us up here, man. You didn't listen to what I said, Mohammed. I disagreed with it wholeheartedly. But that's what the sort of thing we're just going to look at how the team see us. So, I'll say one thing now, lads. I'm going to be honest. None of the United starting team tonight made it into my team.
That's fair enough.
Just so we're clear on that.
Thought Donny van de Beek might have scraped in there now, but I'll give you one.
We could talk about Donny van de Beek all night.
I am a bit of a fanboy, as Keith knows. So.
Big Ajax man below me, and I think how he's treating that lad is a disgrace. But here we're not here to. We're not here to have things.
If you were 7th or 8th in the league, I'd say maybe second. He's doing something right, But
look,
he has time on his side, Donny.
It's true, but it's a strange transfer. Before we get stuck into the show, we'll have a little chat, because it's a strange transfer. It was a strange one, I thought, at the time, because Manchester United bought Bruno Fernandes and had Paul Pogba there, and I just felt, where does Donny van de Beek fit into a team? Because they were also linked tenuously with Thiago at the same time, and you're like, you know, what's the thinking behind this? Like, it didn't make sense at the time, and he just hasn't been given a fair crack. Now, this is something you guys will know more about, because you'll be following the sort of ins and outs of what's happening on the training ground and in and around the club, whereas we look from afar. Gar looks, he's big into Ajax and the Dutch football, so he'd have more of an idea maybe even than me. But what do you think went wrong for Van de Beek at United? Before we get stuck in, Thomas, I'll let you go first. What went wrong? Or what's going wrong? And not what, we won't write him off, but what's going wrong so far?
Yeah, I think, as I said, look, he has time on his hands. You know, it's his first year in England. He's going obviously into a United team that, I think the number one problem is that we signed Bruno Fernandes. You know, I think if Van de Beek comes in ahead of Fernandes, he could have that impact, you know. So that's been the number one thing, playing time. I think, me personally, watching Van de Beek, I feel like he doesn't take enough chances. You know, if he receives the ball, his first thought is, can we play a safe pass? And we play it to a fullback, play it to a centre-back, whatever it may be. And that kills me personally watching him. In his first game, even, I know he only came on with a few minutes to go, he was in the box, he was making runs in behind the centre-halves and obviously scored. I preferred him in that position, right up in behind the striker. But as I said, with Bruno there, it's just not going to happen right now, you know. But I don't actually know where he goes, to be honest with you, Keith. I don't know where he plays.
It's a tough one. Keane, what about yourself?
Like, look, I think when you look at the Van de Beek signing, I think he was more of a Ed Woodward kind of signing than a Ollie signing. Like, it was moved in the summer. We were looking for Jack Grealish as well as an attacking midfielder as well. Again, look, where would he have played if coming into the club on the left hand side? But I think he's been a victim this year of Paul Pogba and Bruno Fernandes' form as well. Because look, I think for the large part of this season they played very well, and like Donny van de Beek has also been a victim of our system this season. Ollie's decided to go with two holding midfielders in McTominay and Fred, and he, you know, I think when you look at it that way, in that respect, I think he fancies them from a defensive aspect to cover, though, that because we don't have a defensive midfielder to do that job of a lone defensive midfielder, like a Liverpool have a Thiago or City have a Rodri, you know, or Fernandinho, whereas we don't have that type of player, and that's why he plays McTominay and Fred to kind of facilitate that lone position. And I think that Donny's been a victim of that as well. So I think there's a number of different things. And look, I hope he stays. I hope next year he gets a bit more game time. And look, next year, Liverpool are going to be back. Chelsea are going to be firing next year. City are going to be there. Like, so we're going to have to use our squad to its maximum next year if we want to compete. So look, let's hope he stays and let's hope it works out though long term.
Yeah, indeed. Gar, we'll give you a say as well on this. Thomas touched on something there before I let you go. Thomas touched on something about him not being brave, and is that sort of a instruction? You know, you're in England, you have to adapt your game. You can't play your own game, and he's trying, maybe he tried too hard to change the style of play, or what do you think has gone wrong for him?
I think we you know, directors of football, or, well, you know, in United's case, a director of, I don't know what he is, traffic or whatever he is. But anyway, they've got away with it this year, to be fair. Right? I think Keane touched on something there. I think the issue, I don't think it's Fernandes or Pogba, lads. I think the issue has been McTominay's form. I think McTominay, from me as a coach, has been excellent this year. But the thing he brings that maybe Donny doesn't is he's a bit more dynamic in that he could sit, but he can also join in with the front five at times as well, and make it a front five. So he is dynamic. He's ranging, he's running, whereas that's not what you're getting out of Van de Beek, especially with McTominay. He'll press high for you. His energy. He's probably a version of a Henderson in his style, in his. I don't want to touch on running gay with United fans, but but that's the way he is. And I think if there's any victim or person that sort of impacted his signing, I think it's been McTominay's form, to be fair, because we knew what Fernandes was all about. Yeah. We know what Pogba's all about. And they are trying to obviously fit two players in at times, and he does play them together at times. But as Keane has touched on, is tried and tested is Fred and McTominay sitting, and the rest of the boys going doing what they like to do. As for his style, I would say he needs to play further forward, lads. The safe pass is generally an instruction from a coach. We know that at Liverpool, Keith, that where we like to use our fullbacks a lot because of what they give us going forward. And I'd say the safe pass thing that you've probably seen him do a lot of the time, Thomas, is that he's been instructed by probably Ollie to be or Carrick. To go left and right with his passes to try and utilise Shaw and try and utilise the right side, who's done very well as well this season. So that could be a more of a tactical instruction from a coach and not the player, because we often try and blame the player, but if you look at Southgate's model as well, at times the safe passes left and right is generally from, because you don't see them players for England playing them safe passes for their clubs. So it's generally, it can be a coach's thing from my point of view.
And I suppose if you look at our Dutch midfielder as well, Gini Van Alden, when you look at he plays the Dutch team and what he plays for Liverpool, it's night and day, really a different game. One player plays totally different game for the team he's in. But look, enough of this niceness about Manchester United, and we'll get started on the team selection. And this isn't the Premier League, lads, so there'll be no preferential treatment for United here, or will there? I'm going to let Gar go first. Gar, you're going to give me your goalkeeper, your greatest Premier League goalkeeper for Manchester United. Go.
Right. It was between two, wasn't it? Schmeichel or Van der Sar. For me, Van der Sar makes it all day long. I just think he's all round better, in my opinion. Obviously, he's got that Dutch model as well, so he could play a bit with his feet as well. That's why he makes it for me.
Gar, I love you.
Do you know what? He made it for me as well. I picked Edwin van der Sar. Now, I put it between three keepers. I put it between three, right? Because I included the Hay in it. Because what I thought was, you've got Peter Schmeichel comes in to 28 or whatever he was, 27, 28 or something when he comes into Manchester. He's at his peak. He get good years out of him. Van der Sar's at the tail end of his career. But De Gea is at the start of his, and he done really well, and he grew into it. Now he's tailed off a bit now, and I don't know if he was, for years he was keeping United irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? When there was times he was winning Player of the Year because he was just making 10, 11 saves in a game. You know what I mean? The fella was unreal. But Thomas, you're not happy with the choices here, and it's fair enough, and that's what we're going to have chats about this. But I went for Van der Sar as well. I think what you'll find with my team as it goes on is it's probably leans heavy on a certain team. Why would you say Schmeichel in there, Tom? Why would you...
I think if you look at, say, from the beginning of the Premier League season, from the tournament beginning, the key signings that United would have made, or Ferguson would have made, Schmeichel without doubt is one of them. That way you're talking about your Cantonas. People would talk about Mark Hughes, Brian Robson, Paul Ince, the players. Schmeichel, without doubt, is one of Ferguson's greatest ever signings. For me, Van der Sar was a brilliant piece of business. Let's call it as it is. He was with Fulham, struggling. You know what I mean? Picked him out of obscurity, really, and became a hero at United. But for me, Schmeichel, he does pip him. I'm not going to say he's miles and miles ahead, but I'm very surprised one of us didn't pick Schmeichel, I have to be honest.
Well, as the rules state, you have no say in this. So Edwin van der Sar is number one in goal.
Can't wait till you see Karius and my team.
Ruin the game for yourself.
I'm in total agreement with the two lads on Van der Sar. Like, I think for me, when you look at kind of when Van der Sar kept that British clean sheet record, was out of over 1,400 minutes or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, was something like that. When he got that record, like, I think again, you have that time after Schmeichel where United failed to replace goalkeepers. Like, they had Barthez, they had Roy Carroll, Tim Howard, those keepers like that who underperformed. And Van der Sar came in at the 39 from Fulham, and he excelled. And again, it just shows kind of what, like we've seen at Liverpool as well, what a good world-class goalkeeper can do to kind of rejuvenate a team.
Yeah, I think I understand sort of where Thomas was coming from with this, because Schmeichel was a symbolic, it changed things, and it was a symbol of a player who comes in that sort of made a statement. And by picking Van der Sar, it was very close between the two of them for me. I just felt, and I think, did you say, Thomas, that Van der Sar played behind a better defence?
Yeah.
And there is that, the game evolves, and Schmeichel was... Schmeichel was a great keeper, made great saves. He had mistakes in him as well, and that was the sort of you know, Stephen O'Connor throws in Barthez was decent as well. Schmeichel number one easy, you know, and everyone has different opinions, and that's why I wanted to do this show. You know, have a little debate. You know, I don't think there'll be too many controversial ones, but I think we started off on one there. But I just thought, you know, Van der Sar was just a solid keeper. He was just very few mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Like he was an excellent base to build your team. Schmeichel was as well, but he was just a bit more erratic, I think. And that was my thinking on going for Van der Sar on this as well. So over to you boys now. Thomas, I'll let you go first. Cardia Scissor, you said, yeah?
Yeah, Jesus, I wish. No, look, I mean, the first thing I'd say is I was born in 94. Don't mean to put any lads down here that probably made that confirmation in 94 or that like that. But so for me, watching football, you're talking, you know, from the treble of United onwards, that sort of millennium on. Yeah. And it was Reina for me, for Liverpool, who was outstanding. Came in under Benitez, probably was the best goalkeeper in the league for 4 or 5 years, along with Van der Sar around that time. But, you know, he would have been the first goalkeeper that I remember was excellent with the ball at his feet. Now it's normal, but he came in and really revolutionised it. So over 100 clean sheets as well, and only 200 and odd games. So yeah, Reina for me.
Very interesting, and a good choice, Thomas. You know, I think we'll see what Keane went with, but it's an interesting old choice. Keane, what about you?
I did originally have Reina, but I have to go with Alisson. Like I'm born in 96. For me, like again, I've been only watching the Premier League since about obviously 99, 2000. Like again, when you look at the transformation of what Alisson did in that Liverpool team, like you touched on, you had Karius in goal before that, Simon Mignolet. Before that, obviously Reina was in goal before that. He was a fantastic goalkeeper, but after Reina, it kind of took you a while to replace that kind of leader and a goalkeeper. And to see what Alisson has done in terms of his distribution with the ball, his commandiness in the box, and just the overall confidence he gave your defence. Now, obviously, Virgil van Dijk was a massive part in that too. You know, he was an integral signing for Liverpool's success. But when you look at Alisson, £65 million goalkeeper, and since he's come in, he's justified every single penny. Like people might touch on this season, yes, there might have been a couple of mistakes, but overall, when you look at his overall time at Liverpool, he's been integral in winning the Champions League, winning the Premier League. Like last season, though he made great saves, this season he's kept you in games as well. So look for me, again, Reina was class. I do agree with Thomas, he was class for Liverpool, and he probably would get more recognition, though if it wasn't for Van der Sar in that era. But I think when you look at the overall transformation and impact that he's had at Liverpool, I'd have to say Alisson for me.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd say it's obviously between the two lads, really. Before we move on, Stephen Dunn, are we talking about Premier League or all time? No, just Premier League, Stephen. We just said we'd look at the Premier League era, so yeah, bear that in mind with any selections that come. But it's interesting, Gareth, isn't it? Like with the two keepers that the lads have come up with, and it nearly similar. You know, it's Reina came in. He was the first really great keeper we had of the Premier League era, wasn't he? There wasn't many.
Thomas is going to fume there. Thank God he has them headphones in, because I saw a bit of fire coming out there. No, you know, and it's, you know, as you've just touched on, it's very interesting you've picked those two. I think for me, Reina did have, I suppose you've touched on Keane, you've touched on Alisson this year, but let's not forget he's played about 75 different centre half pairs this year in front of him. So, which a keeper needs, you know, some stability in front of him. Let's be honest here. I think you touch on Reina there, who had generally a similar back four a lot of the time. So for me, just at the moment, I think just Alisson, for what he's won, I think he pips him for me. At present, and we only spoke about Reina earlier, Keith. As you say, the first keeper to be really good was, you know, to show that ball at your feet, to become another player, an outfield player if you need them to play a pass back or whatever too. But for me, Alisson just pips it for just everything all around.
Yeah. Tom, you're looking to jump in there?
Do you know what I was going to say? Originally, when I wrote it out a couple of times, I was hemming and hawing between the two. As you said, lads, they're probably the two that everyone would go to. Yeah. And what just pips it for me, for Reina, it's just that Alisson hasn't been there long enough yet. I think another year or two, everyone goes for Alisson, really, if he continues on the way he's going. Ryan, I think, was 9 years at Liverpool. I've never really seen him had a run of bad games, right? Fair enough, the odd one or two here or there. It's longevity that done it for me, to be honest with you, over Alisson. But if we were here in 2 years' time, I think we'd be all saying Alisson, you know.
Yeah, it was only when you threw beach balls in that you struggled.
Yeah. Just don't throw them beach balls in.
Or Darren Bent, one or the other. I know which one it was.
Both of them are banned and anyway now from the chat. But no, it's true. And an interesting thing, similar to the two Manchester United choices that we had, Reina played in a very defensive team. Do you know what I mean? Rafa Benitez was a defensive coach. He set up in a defensive team. Jurgen Klopp's a much more attacking sort of manager who, you know, does shored up the defence with Van Dijk and with Alisson. But, you know, it's different areas and similar to, you know, I don't mind the keeper taking a risk like Alisson does, but it's similar to Schmeichel. You know, he takes risks. Ederson takes risks every week and nobody says a thing about Ederson. You know what I mean? He makes a mistake nearly every game. And because they win, when you're winning, it's fine. But when you make a balls and you lose, I suppose it's never good. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, Tom, about the longevity for Reina. It's an interesting one there. We'll have to get you to the side on that one come the end. But it's good that you have, you know, unlike me and Gar, who went for the controversial Van der Sar shout, you guys have split the difference on that. But again, this is what we want to do. We want to just see, you know, what people think and the view from opposition. So if anyone in the chat wants to throw anything in there, feel free. Any suggestions? We want to move on to the defence now. So I'm going to let Keane go first on this one. Keane.
I got pelters off United fans for doing this. I told United fans my lineup before I came on. I'm going Trent Alexander-Arnold. For the time I've watched Liverpool, when you look at the kind of right backs in the Premier League era, I did originally have Steve Finnan at right back because the Irish connection had the bit of sentiment. But when I look at Trent in the last 3 years since he's come into the team, he's been absolutely sensational going forward. He's kind of shown a new style of kind of like right back in the Premier League. It's not all just about defending, it's about going forward. And like, look, do I see right back being in his position long term? No. I think he could move into midfield eventually going forward. I think he has all the kind of attributes to play in midfield. But I'm going to go Trent because, like, you look at his assist record last season, absolutely ridiculous. And he's improving going forward. Now, people do tend to criticise him from rival clubs, and like I see Liverpool fans even sometimes they might criticise him for his defensive side of the game. But look, he compensates for that for the way he goes forward and what he does in it from an offensive aspect. So, look, I'll go Trent Alexander-Arnold as my right back.
Excellent. Thomas, right back for you.
Do you know what, Keith? I went with a back three because...
Did you want now?
I went with a back three. Now, that's not to say that Alexander-Arnold's not in the team.
Okay.
But the reason why I went with three centre-backs is because I couldn't leave out one of them. So, first choice was Sami Hyypiä, centre-back. I couldn't leave him out. Obviously, a legend at Liverpool. Very underrated when it comes to rival fans, rival teams. I don't think they appreciate how good he was. But me, as I say, from watching football through that era, ever present, you know, excellent player. If he was in the Premier League today, he'd be one of the best in the league without a doubt. So yeah, for me, Hyypiä was my first choice at the back.
Interesting. I don't remember saying we could switch formations, but I like the way you done it. And anyway, on your debut, you just came in and threw my rules out the window. But no, look, that's it. Throw the cat among the pigeons. No, I'm only messing. That's fine. Yeah, Sami Hyypiä, it's a good choice, and it'll be interesting to see where you go then with that. Gar, right back. Who do you feel? Who gets it for you? Manchester United.
Yeah, I think there's only one really, isn't it? I think Gary Neville gets it all day long for me. I just think he was defensively astute. You know, sort of old school, but then in years gone by, some of his assists, he's obviously learned a lot from a person who was in front of a lot of time, and some of his crosses from the right side were absolutely out of this world at times, and especially with a rolling ball most of the time. First time cross, so I thought it was really underrated, underplayed part of his game, but he was really, really good at it. And to be fair to him, he had number 9s in there who could head a ball as well. So for me, all day, Gary Neville.
Right, Gary Neville. Yeah, I have Gary Neville as well. If Paul Parker's in the chat, but I have your name wrote down here, Paul, in pencil, just as a backup. But there's not much of a choice. I mean, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Keane, you touched on Trent Alexander-Arnold there getting stick for his defensive thing. It's not as bad, I think, as it's made out to be. But it just goes to show the evolution, really, of the positions, doesn't it? Because Aaron Wan-Bissaka is an excellent defender, right? He's absolutely brilliant, but he's so poor, and I'm not having a dig at Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Going forward, he just doesn't have the makeup and the position. You think automatically you want your fullback, your defender to defend, but the way the game has evolved and changed, there's much more emphasis on the attacking side of it. And Gar touched on it there with Gary Neville. I think he was an excellent outlet for Beckham. I think the link up then two had, Neville wasn't. He never really got the credit, because he was a player that rival fans love to hate. Obviously, he still is. It's his nature as well, his persona would be very sort of irritating, But when you look at the player itself, like when you look at him, he was so consistent. Do you know what I mean? He was such a, and when you look at him now, talking back when he does that goggle box thing that he does, soccer box, it's excellent when you see him doing that, when he's talking to sort of rival players or teammates now, looking back on the games and the mindset and the tactical sort of now. He's an excellent fullback. There was only one choice, jokingly aside, was who were the other right backs. I couldn't really think of many.
Could you maybe put Dennis Irwin there? Can you maybe put Dennis Irwin, move him over to right back?
Yeah, well, that's to say, who knows if he's on left back. But you know what I mean? There hasn't been that many, has there? Because Parker was there, Irwin would have played both sides. Gary Neville comes in and cements that, and then he gets phased out of the team. Raphael is sort of in there. Who else was there after that?
Valencia would have been.
Antonio Valencia,
Couldn't remember. There was a big gap. I was trying to think who, and there was a gap.
Fairness. He gave us 10 years, Valencia. I think people realise it was that long he was there.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of them. He's an inverted winger, isn't he? I don't think you can ever really call him a true fullback. It's Gary Neville for me all day as well.
Yeah, it'd have to be,
definitely Gary Neville. But I just want to shout out Wes Brown for that one season where he did play right back for 2008 season where we won the Champions League. He was very good that season, but it definitely is Gary Neville all day. But I do have to give Wes Brown a shout for that.
Yeah,
that
one funny. Season. Owen Borg shouts that in as well. Wes Brown getting a shout. Phil Neville,
didn't he?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Phil Neville, who we all forget, utility man. John O'Shea. That's the strength, I think, of Manchester United was their squad use over the years. Ferguson had players that you could plug in holes with centre backs, with midfielders, with all sorts of players. Quinton Fortune done stints at left back as well.
Heinze did both sides as well, didn't he?
Heinze was one of my favourites. Just spoiling the left back.
And he nearly signed for us, Keita, but
yeah. Was kicking him out, but wasn't kicking him that far down the road.
He's bad, Heinze.
But it's an easy selection, I suppose. So it's Gary Neville for myself and Gar, and the boys have Thomas has thrown this into disarray so far. But
had to throw your regime out the window, Keith.
Yeah, you did. Well done. I appreciate that. But look, we'll move on again, and Gar will stay with you. We'll get the fullbacks out of the way here because Thomas hasn't got any, so we'll do our fullbacks and then we'll move to centre back. So your left back position, Gar, who did you go with?
Dennis Irwin all day long. I absolutely loved watching him. His commitment, there was no bullshit about him. He could score goals, he could create. He was probably something that he shouldn't have been at the time. He was probably ahead of himself for his time because he could attack as well at a time where fullbacks weren't allowed to go past the halfway line. I just thought he was unbelievable. I don't think he sort of played that role for his country, which was a bit of a shame, really. But for me, Dennis Irwin, he could take free kicks as well. He was technically brilliant as well. Not many of them Irishmen were technically brilliant back in the day, but no, he could definitely. He had everything about him. Could tackle, a quiet man as well, but had a leadership aura about him because he went into games. He was so consistent. He was a 10 out of 10 most games anytime I'd seen him back then. So for me, Dennis Irwin.
Yeah, it's getting boring now. We have Dennis Irwin as well in that left full. Because and for all those reasons, you know, similar. Keane touched on Steve Finnan for right back for Liverpool, and it's amazing. You know, it's nearly a parallel. Obviously, Finnan didn't get the goals that Dennis Irwin got, but such an unassuming sort of unsung hero nearly of a team. You know that way, and it was no bullshit. They were just solid players, and you know, Dennis Irwin played so long, and United bought him from Oldham, wasn't it? And you know, it's not like this was high profile fella coming in. He was brought in from Oldham. He was just so consistent, absolutely solid player. And you know, the other options, Patrice Evra, done well for a few years. I wouldn't have picked him. I personally like Gabriel Heinze. I love Argentinian footballers. Gabriel Heinze was one of my, you know, guilty pleasures. He was a dirty bastard. He was a snidey fucker. I like that. You know what I mean? I think it's one thing Liverpool have lacked over the years was that bit of snide. And I always thought Heinze had that. And I was chomping at the bit for Liverpool to bring him in, but it wasn't to be. But other players, I suppose, Luke Shaw. I mean, at the moment, the turnaround in Luke Shaw's career has been sort of, you know, for a player who comes in for a whole big price tag and got thrown under the bus by Jose Mourinho, and you know, it's not easy to come back from that sort of thing, and he's improved. So yeah, a shout out for him. But no, it's Dennis Irwin for me as well on that. Keane, what about you? Liverpool left full. Who have you gone for?
I have two, and I'm finding it really tough to decide. With this one, I have John Arisa and I have Andy Robertson. Like, two of them are top class left backs. Both can ping a ball. Both very good going forward. Comments might slaughter me now for this now, because I know John Arisa is a cult hero, but I have to go Andy Robertson. I have to go Andy Robertson because, again, it's a steal from Hull City. Like, what was it, £8 million you paid from Hull? Like, and he's come in and he's just done so well, and he's another person who was Mr. Consistent for Liverpool. Like, even this season, when it hasn't been your best season, he's still been like one of your most consistent players. This season, I have a couple of Liverpool fans on my channel, and they massively praise Robertson as well. And you know, I think he's a very good player. And look, I'm going to put him as my left back, but John Arisa, I just want to give him a shout as well. Like, he was just a fantastic left back as well. I actually think I know Liverpool fans won't underrate him, but I think from a rival fan's point of view, I think he was underrated at Liverpool.
I'm gonna just be honest with you here, Keane. If you had a win with John Arisa, I think your connection might have been mysteriously cut. You might have been kicked out. No, look, I know what you're saying. John Arisa was for the play. He was a good player for Liverpool. He was, you know, he was strength, wasn't he? John Arisa was a strong runner. He had a strong shot and all that. But you know, I think Robertson has just transformed that type of player for Liverpool, and it's interesting as well. You know, if you look at Liverpool, there's a lot of the current team would be the best of the era, because we weren't a great team for many years in the Premier League, you know. But one player that's getting a shout out in there is Fabio Aurelio, and he's the one that could have been, do you know what I mean, similar to maybe Rob Jones as a right back, you know. And Rob Jones played an awful lot of games, more games than I thought for Liverpool, but Fabio Aurelio was just absolutely magic, but he was always injured. Do you know what I mean? He was always injured. He was an absolutely fantastic player. But Robertson getting the nod for you, it's you've redeemed yourself there, King, because I thought you were going to fall on the John Arisa sword, and the chat would have went for you by the looks of it, you know. But look, fair play. It's a good choice. So you've literally gone with Alisson, Trent, and Robbo so far. So you're tying into the Premier League winning era of Liverpool, which was, you know, very, very recent.
It gets a bit different. It gets a bit different later on in the team.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because and similar with my own team and I'm sure the lads as well. There's different eras and different areas of teams that will be totally different, and one era will have more dominance in your position. Group of players. So Tom, I'm going to come back to you, right? So you've gone with 3 centre backs. Give me your second centre back.
So it has to be in everyone. Kane's team as well. Van Dijk, Liverpool's best defender for me that I've ever seen play for the club in my lifetime. Obviously just missed out on the Ballon d'Or by she's a handful of votes to the greatest player of all time. So yeah, Van Dijk, no brainer.
Yeah, can't even really argue with that. You know what I mean? I agree with everything you've said. He's one of the best, certainly one of the best defenders I've seen. Do you know what I mean? Different eras, different defenders. You know what I mean? Like you can look back at a Maldini, a Baresi. You know, those players that will be in the Manchester United team that I'm going to pick that probably others won't agree with. But you know, Van Dijk is just so elegant, and he has it all. You know, he's quick, he's strong, he's great in the air. Do you know what I mean? He knows, he's smart. He has a bit of everything that you want in a centre back, and it's a no brainer. Keane, I'm going to come to you. Give us your first centre back.
No brainer, Virgil van Dijk. Look, his impact to Liverpool. Like when eyebrows were raised and he signed for Liverpool at £75 million coming from Celtic then to Southampton. Do you know what I mean? Like eyebrows were raised at the time, but my God, has he blown that out of the water? Like he's just been so dominant as a centre back, and you see it now, like how crucial a world class centre back is for any team. Like not even just Liverpool at the moment, but you can see City with Ruben Diaz at the moment. They've brought him in and he's transformed them as well. He's the best centre back in the world, and look, there's not more I could say really that anyone else hasn't already said kind of about Virgil van Dijk. The selection speaks for itself. And look, just even from Rive fans' point of view, it'd be interesting to see now when he comes back. Hopefully he can keep up the form. And look, as a United fan, I want to see us battling next year. Do you know what I mean? I want to see our best players back, and let's see us build ourselves, and let's the best play the best. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what I'd like to see next year. And look, Virgil van Dijk, absolutely no question, gets in.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Gar, I mean, I think we're probably in agreement with this choice. Are we with Van Dijk at centre back?
Yeah. I don't think there's no argument really, is there?
There's not much we can add. You know, he's just an absolutely sensational player.
Do you know what? There's any complaint I had, right? There's any complaint I had. It's that he didn't get to a top club quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent.
And there's always this thing that's thrown about by certain coaches that he had this. He was more arrogant, and far too cocky at the time. Yeah. And we've heard a couple of coaches mention it. A couple of people at Celtic, I believe, mentioned it, that he nearly should have left from Celtic to go into a Champions League, a proper, a Champions League. So Liverpool or United at the time, or City at the time. Strange. Yeah, but that'll be my only flaw is that he didn't come to the top sooner. Because you're now lucky. He's 30 now. Could lose, there's rumours that he could lose out on going, but I think he does go to the Euros. To be honest with you, I think they're going to push for it. But that'll be my only gain, that he hasn't hit the elite of Europe and World Cups and Euros and things like that for a longer time.
Even in Holland, like he was, what was he with Groningen? Was he? He was with Groningen in Holland, and then he goes to, he wasn't at the top echelons even. I'm sure he was hugely rated, but he didn't go to that. He didn't go to the top. So that's a great point, and it's a tough one for Liverpool in the summer because, at 29 or 30 years old, he doesn't have many big tournaments left in him. And while he's missed out on this whole season, if he's fit to go, it's going to be a tough one for Liverpool to square off there, because you can't deprive players of having a shot at these international tournaments. He'll have this and he'll have a World Cup, although I don't know when these things are being played now. The World Cup could be played in 6 weeks after the Euros, the way the calendar is at the moment.
He'll get them too soon, straight after him.
Having a clue Christmas at the same year. It's just unbelievable.
Winter 2022, the World Cup's been played, isn't it?
Yeah,
I suppose,
18 months after the Euros,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But look, Van Dijk is mustard, and it is a good point there by Gar. But Gar, I'm going to stay with you, right? Give us your centre back. Do you know what? Give me your centre back pairing for Manchester United.
Right, I toyed with three. The three came down to Rio, Vidic, and Stam. This could be controversial in Thomas's eyes. I'm taking Vidic out there, and I'm leaving Rio and Stam in. I just think Stam. I think every centre forward was afraid of End of no story. And he could play ball as well. To be fair to him. Dutch, obviously, technicality as well. I think Vidic misses out because Torres just used to rip him a new one every time he played him.
All day I was at home saying, the first thing I'm going to say about Vidic is Torres told him that twice. About 400 games.
No, for me, just Rio's elegance, what he could do on a pitch. He was class. We saw that when he moved to Leeds from West Ham. He was class in everything he did. And to have Stam in beside him just to put the ruffles into people. And he was a brilliant out and out defender. He was class. Probably not as highly rated by a lot of United fans. I think a lot of people would probably go for Vidic because of little Alex's fallout with Stam. But for me, Stam all day long. Yeah.
This is getting boring now because my two was Stam and Ferdinand as well. And Thomas, you touched on something there, that Torres only had a couple of good games. Tore him to shreds a few times. But not only that, Vidic had like 3 red cards in a row against Liverpool. He just struggled. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And this is the sort of thing as well that we're doing this for. United fans would see Vidic as one type of player, and Liverpool fans. And going back to the Gary Neville, when he done the soccer box with Steven Gerrard said, we targeted Vidic because we knew, we'd get into him, and that's United fans will see him. Gar touched on there about Stam. Stam left maybe a bit too early, and I think Ferguson has since admitted that he probably drove him out too early. He went on and done great things with Milan after that. So I do have Ferdinand and Stam as well, and I had Pallister in the mix as well, going back to the early Premier League years, because Gary Pallister was a big signing for Manchester United. We thought we were getting him at the time from Middlesbrough, and it was a huge transfer. And when you look back, I think it was only 3 million or something. It wasn't, in today's money, it seems like a pittance, but Gary Pallister was an excellent defender. And again, this show idea came from me brother-in-law had Steve Bruce as in his, and again it's another symbolic player, but he had Bruce and Vidic as his pair, and I couldn't get my head around that at all. I'm like, you don't have Yap Stam, what's going on? And Rio Ferdinand, a lot of people think Vidic made Ferdinand look better, and right on key. Anton M says Vidic made Rio look better. I don't think that. I think Ferdinand was such I think Ferdinand, he was upstairs, he was just so intelligent. Do you know what I mean? That he knew Vidic was a rash. Vidic was a very rash defender. And, that can be great when you're a front-footed defender and you're getting stuck in and you put your head onto the end of a boot and all that. But you need a brain in there beside it, and you need a player that's quick. And this isn't a dig at these two lads. Like, I think Virgil van Dijk is what both of them are. Do you know what I mean? I think Virgil van Dijk is as tough as Nemanja Vidic and is as quick as Rio Ferdinand, and they had that perfect pairing, and they were so good because they had that bit of both. Do you know what I mean? That United era, my team's going to heavily sort of lean on that sort of that United side, but I go for Stam and Ferdinand as well in the defence. So me and Gar have not had one fucking choice that's been different, which is probably the that's the point of the show. We'll see what people think.
It's gonna get different going forward, I think, Keith.
It could do. Yeah. Thomas, you still have a centre back to give me, don't you?
Yeah, it's Carragher. I know a lot of people. If you even speak to people today, they said Carragher wasn't necessarily the best defender, but he's our Gary Neville. He was a 6 out of 10, a 7 out of 10, longevity. He's always there for Liverpool. He symbolises everything Liverpool is, along with obviously Gerrard. Now he was an Everton fan growing up or whatever, Carragher, but it's just a passion. And I just think teams don't exist without players like that. If I'm picking a team, it's one of the first names on the team sheet is Jamie Carragher for how passionate he is, longevity, very rarely out injured for long periods of time in his career. I couldn't leave him out. People were saying to me, Hippie and Van Dijk, great partnership, but just think ever since I've watched Liverpool, Jamie Carragher's been there, that way. So couldn't leave him out personally.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. You've gone for the Sky Sports show by Gary Neville's knee. Yeah, Carragher is a player that it's a strange one because he is one that, as a player, I didn't overly rate, to be honest.
A lot of people said that to me. You know,
didn't overly rate him. It was more his organisational skills and the barking. Because if you think of Sami Hyypiä, it was a centre back at that time as well, and even Stefan Honcho before that, and Carragher played at left full, sort of when Marcus Babbel was there. You know, it was, you know, they needed somebody to be vocal and to be an organizer, and Jamie Carragher sort of was a leader like that. So it was, yeah, as a player, he was never my cup of tea, but I can understand why you'd pick him. You know what I mean? I can sort of see that. On book, Carragher got cramp around 8 times, cleared in balls in Istanbul. You know, people love that. That's fair enough. I'm asking why is he getting all them cramps, but whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. Keane, do you have another centre back for me as well?
Yeah, Sami Hyypiä is my centre back. Again, he was a very good player. Like, you know, back in the day, back in like the early 2000s, even like when Liverpool were battling in around the top 4, Sami Hyypiä was the defender I did really like. Growing up playing as a defender, I used to always watch like Ferdinand Vidic playing ball myself, but I used to look at other centre backs outside of that. Obviously, John Terry being a massive one, Hyypiä being one, Cannavaro as well. Like, look, if you're looking at other leagues, but definitely Sami Hyypiä, he was class, and you know, he isn't talked about enough in terms of Premier League all-time great centre backs. Do you know what I mean? I think he was a very good defender, and you know, again, he could probably play in this era as well. Do you know, he was that good, and so Sami Hyypiä is my centre back.
Yeah, I mean, when you look back, I mean, Gary, you'll know, looking back in the earlier years of the Premier League in the 90s, you're talking about, you know, Neil Ruddock and Mark Roy, Phil Babb, John Scales. Yeah, there was a dearth of centre backs there, wasn't there? And I think, you know, Hyypiä comes in, and similar nearly to Van Dijk, Hyypiä comes in with Honcho, in fairness. Didi Hamann, I think, all came in at the same time, and it just instantly solidified and gave Liverpool a base. You know, it really made them harder to beat. So yeah, it's probably an easy choice for the lads. So they both have Hyypiä, both have Van Dijk. Keane's gone with the 2 fullbacks. Thomas has thrown Carragher in. Before we move off the defence, a lot of shouts in there. Daniel Agger getting a shout for Liverpool. I don't know what you boys thought of the likes of Daniel Agger and Martin Skrtel. It could be maybe a cult thing that Liverpool fans sort of loved Agger.
You know, for me, Keith,
no way. I think you look at our Liverpool's defenders, Carragher, like Hyypiä, and Van Dijk. No way. Even though he's very good, centre back, but not compared to the other lads. Like, the other lads were monsters compared to him.
What about you, Tom? Would you say?
Within their own right, they're good players, you know, that way. But when you're talking the grand scheme, 30 years of the Premier League, they do get forgotten about, to be honest, from rival fans. I like Skrtel. I always fancied him for an anytime goal scorer. You know, he was great in the other box, scoring goals as well. But Agger injured quite a lot as well in his career. But decent players, and don't mean to be disrespectful to them. United have had, you know, 20 of them, you know, centre halves that they just kind of come in, play well, and they're gone. You know, that's
exactly. And it's nearly the cult hero status of Daniel Agger, you know what I mean? A few shouts for United centre backs. Henning Berg got a shout. It's a bit of an outrageous shout, to be honest. But one person that did get a shout was Ronnie Johnson, and Ronnie Johnson was a very good. I was just going to say that,
Keith. But suffered with injuries again.
Yeah.
But in that season, that one season, he was ridiculous. He was, to be fair to him.
He was if his injuries hadn't derailed him, I think he would have been an absolutely smashing player. It's unfortunate the way it went for him. So that gets, Thomas, I'm going to stick with you on this because you've thrown this. What formation, by the way, have you picked there?
I've 4 in midfield. 4-3 up front.
3-4-3.
Yeah.
Outrageous Antonio Conte nonsense.
Now, disclaimer, what I will say is, obviously the 2 wide menus are probably going to guess who they are. You know what I mean? The 2 that Keane has named are Alexander-Arnold and Robertson. Personally, the reason why I put them there is because I don't fancy Alexander-Arnold as a defender. So I said, right, he's playing right side of midfield. Robertson, I think, is a good defender, but couldn't leave him out. Couldn't put anyone else in for him. I know Reece got a mention purely because of what he done to Alan Smith. Can't pick him. But I have to put in Anthony Robertson. Do you know what, Keith? I've never seen two defenders both have top of the assists league in a season. And I think they had something like 15 and 14 each or whatever it was the year Liverpool won, maybe the year before it was. Two unbelievable players. Cost Liverpool combined 8 million. Outstanding.
And when you think about it, even the 8 million thing, like we bought him for 8 million off Hull and then sold Hull Kevin Stewart for 8 million the next time. So essentially, he was a free. We won't brag about that. But no, it is interesting. You know, it's interesting that you've gone sort of, you've just essentially had to accommodate Carragher in your team.
It was, you know, he's, as I said, he's our Neville. You know, the way, nothing to do with the Sky Sports aspect of it. It's longevity. I think, is he a record appearance holder? Or he's there?
Well, no, he's up there. Ian Callaghan is, Ian Callaghan's about played.
He's up there. Do you know what I mean?
He is.
And as I said, anytime I watched Liverpool growing up as a kid, he was that warrior. You know, I always, Liverpool, when I think of it, it's Gerrard and Carragher. They're just synonymous with the club to me. So I couldn't leave him out, you know.
Yeah, I know that's fair enough. And you've gone with the two lads in that sort of wing back roles. Which is, so that leaves you then with sort of a midfield two and then a front three to come back to. So it'll be interesting to see who you've gone for in there. Keane, I'll come to you now. Into the midfield. What do you want to do? Why have you done this? What formation have you come with?
I've gone with a classic 4-4-2. You know, and Liverpool did play that as well down the years. So I'm going to go a classic 4-4-2. Do I have to name my two centre midfielders first?
If you want to do it that way, you do it that way. Who have you got?
My two centre midfielders. Just, I want to give an honourable mention to Jordan Henderson. Because Gary was on my channel, was pushing me to put Jordan Henderson in. I think he's a very good leader for Liverpool. Look, I think massively underrated, like in terms of his impact at the football club. You're seeing when he's out injured how much Liverpool are missing that leadership and his drive in midfield and his energy. So I do just want to shout him out for that. And, you know, they'll give him an honourable mention. But look, two midfielders, comments are saying it. It's a no-brainer for me. Xabi Alonso, Steven Gerrard. In that 08-09 season when you were challenging us for the title, I know Mascherano was in there in the tree as well. But Alonso and Gerrard were just different gravy that season. And, you know, Xabi Alonso, his range of passing, his intelligence in midfield, he was one of the best midfielders in the Premier League when he was in the league. I think he left Liverpool a bit too early, if I be honest. At the time, I think he could have still been world class for Liverpool, you know, down the years if he stayed there. And look, Steven Gerrard, look, he's one of your greatest ever players, if not your greatest. I think that's debatable. He's world class leader. Like, looking from 2005 up until the point he left, there was so many games where he just carried you. So many games where he just won the game on his own. The one game, obviously, one of the games that comes to mind is the 2005 Champions League final. He was everywhere. 2006 FA Cup final against West Ham. Like, just to name a couple. He's got a couple of good games against Man United down the years against us, scored many important goals. So again, them two definitely get in there as my two centre midfielders. And the two of them were just proper class. And look, Mascherano, give him just an honourable mention. He was class at Liverpool too. But look, there's no question in my mind. Alonso and Gerrard, Premier League are absolute class.
Excellent. Gar, we're going to come to you now. So we're on to the midfield now for Man United. So which way do you want to do? Do you want to give your centre mids or your wide players? Have you gone with a 4-4-2 as well?
Okay, me and 4-4-2. You should know me better.
I was only thinking that. So what have
you should know me
with?
better. Now there is the capability to switch to a 4-4-2, but now I've gone 4-3-3. Right. So what do you want me to do?
Whatever you want. Give me.
Do you want me to go with the 3? I'll just go with the 3, will I?
Go with the 3.
Yeah, I'll go with the 3. Right. Okay. So the first one for me all day long. Keno. I don't even need to mention anything about him, to be fair. for me, I idolised him. I hated watching him playing for United growing up, but I idolised him. I played centre mid. He had so much drive. He dragged United through at times, through games. The Juve game being the one, obviously, that stands out for a lot of people. But he was unbelievable. Different gravy for me. Scholes he gets in because I think as an English player, I think he was ahead of the time for what he could do on the ball. Technically, from a goal scoring point of view, I don't get this thing that he couldn't tackle. He well knew what he was doing. He was tackling. He was just and there's another. Here's the spanner in the works.
Right.
I absolutely adore David Beckham. I think he can play in midfield. For what he done, lads. We you guys are. Keane just touched on something there about Henderson, and some of these players who we've mentioned tonight have had to work hard at games. Gary Neville, people like that have had to work very, very hard. Technically on the training ground for hours at times, and I just think with me, Beckham, he would just give you assists all day long. He could hit a free kick. I just thought his attitude, his drive, he gave some poor United sides at the time a bit of leadership. Went on to Real Madrid, done it there. A lot of people hadn't got the balls to move away and do it, but he did, in fairness to him. Even took a stint at Milan and PSG and some of the tournament homes as well. But to be fair, that's why I go with them. I just loved his drive, his determination to work hard, and what he could do assist wise. Technically with a ball at his feet, he put it on a sixpence for you, and on a plate, and there'd be all sorts of sauce on the plate for it: curry sauce, tomato sauce, everything. Unbelievable.
Mac sauce, everything. So that's interesting. You've gone with a three, right? You've gone with Beckham, Keane, and Scholes, right? So we'll come on to your forwards now in a minute. I went with the four. I got suckered into sentimentality here and went for Manchester United 4-4-2. And you know what, right? I'm bleeding disgusted that I did, because one of them I can't stand. And I should have just tweaked it, and I thought we were all going 4-4-2, but it turns out I'm the only bleeding. No, Keane done it as well. The only idiots that went and stuck with 4-4-2 here. So it's I've the exact same three players, right? I've Beckham on the right, Keane, and I've Scholes. Now, I was talking to Gary earlier, we were training, and I said I didn't have Scholes in the team. And I was toying with not putting Scholes in the team because Scholes is a great player. I wanted Varane, and I couldn't justify.
We knew it.
He said it to me earlier. Varane is one of my favourite players, right? I think he's one of the best players of our generation, right? Full stop, right? Except his little stint in England. And if I have to judge as Manchester United, I couldn't, with all, conscience, all credibility, I couldn't have put him in. So I've gone with Scholes reluctantly in the centre mid, beside Roy Keane. But in all seriousness, now genuinely, I think Varane's one of the best players of the last 30 years. I think he's an absolutely sensational footballer. But for not just that, Man U didn't work out at Chelsea either. He just wasn't suited to England. But I went with Keane and Scholes, and I went with them ahead of Carrick and Robson, right? Because Brian Robson, I think, is the symbolic one again. He goes through. I'm the oldest on this. So I remember United in the 80s. I remember Arthur Albiston. I remember Remy Moses. I remember Neil Webb. I remember fucking all sorts. Ashley Grimes. You know what I mean? Like, these were not Peter Davenport. Did Manchester United in the late 80s were no great shakes. Brian Robson was in there throughout that. Now, they had good players like Norman Whiteside and Paul McGrath. They were all mad session heads. And anyway, but Brian Robson was sort of robbed. I hate to say robbed of medals, but he was so much better than the show he had around him. And it's nearly like Gerrard for a few years. Gerrard had good players in there, like we touched on, Alonso, Mascherano and that, but Brian Robson was an absolutely brilliant player, and I did toy with putting him in there ahead of Scholes, and I went with Scholes. I think Michael Carrick is a hugely underrated player. I think Michael Carrick is a player that, similar to other players in that they're not dynamic. Xabi Alonso wasn't dynamic, but he was so intelligent. And Michael Carrick was the exact same. And he could drop him into centre back, and he could do a job there. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was an outrageously talented player. But no, I went with Keane and Scholes. Now, I'm going to stay on here for myself. I put Giggs in, and I fucking can't stand him. I cannot stand him. I think he's one of the most overrated players. And this, genuinely, right, I think he's massively overrated player, but I thought we were doing 4-4-2, and he's played on the left wing for about 23 years of the 30. So I'm like, who else can I have in here? And I went for Bleeding Giggs, and I'm tempted to change my team here. I can just put Bleeding Nanny, put Nanny in or something ahead of him.
Kato, you know why I always put Giggs out, right? This is going to be a bit of a mad show. I didn't like the way he cried off international duty. I think he could have gone on and been a Welsh legend. Now, obviously, nowadays that's for another story. But I think he got on to he cried off internationals all the time. Now, listen, I do agree it wasn't a great Welsh side, right? Let's be honest here, right? It wasn't. But I just think he could have been a legend for his country. And to me, he's not that. And obviously, Ferguson was telling players not to go to international. I know. Listen, I understand. United were amazing at the time, and he was, he wanted his players at their peak performance all the time. But just for me, that at a time where international football meant something.
Yeah, he was huge for Wales, but just not for Wales. Because of the Manchester United link, and it is an interesting one. Alex Ferguson ran Manchester United like a dictatorship, and it's not a criticism because he didn't like a reporter, he didn't talk to a reporter, he didn't want to send his players on international duty, he didn't send them on, they'd have an injury or whatever, and that's the way he done it, and he brought success. A lot of people in the chat are shouting no Ronaldo for me. Now, Ronaldo didn't get into my team because I was again talking to Gar earlier on this, and I went with Beckham on the right, because Ronaldo, what he became was after Manchester United, in my opinion. It's not a dig on him. I think he developed at United. I think he became an excellent player at United. And for his last 2 years there, I think he was absolutely sensational. But I just thought Beckham on the right, the delivery that Beckham was putting in, I thought the transition that it took Ronaldo, he was more of a forward than a winger for me, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, you went from David Beckham, and I'm going to touch on the forwards as well, like in a minute, but David Beckham was putting in crosses. The forwards knew where it was going to land and didn't have to work for it. With Ronaldo, when he came in, they were making their runs, and Ronaldo did a drag back.
Yeah.
Make the runs.
Frustration,
Well, he said that he used to film. He didn't know when the ball was going to come in, and I think you can see it in him, that way. That is definitely a fault. But I have to agree with you though, back on your Ryan Giggs point. As a United fan, Ryan Giggs in the 90s was one of the best players in the league for me. How good he was. After the treble, he tailed off. He wasn't up there. That way you're talking from, say, 93 to 99. After that, I have to say I agree with you. Better players came into the league, made him look great, you know what I mean? So I agree with you.
He was nearly like a poster boy for that sort of team, and the fact that Manchester United brought in that class in '92 and Ryan Giggs was there, the first one to break through, and the longevity thing is key. But even the goal against Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final, I think it's an overrated goal. I think it's a good goal, but he only beats like two players and scores it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say it's a bad goal, but I just felt everything with Giggs was maybe a bit overhyped, would be what I would say. And I just felt there was better players. I agree with you, Tom. I think there was better players. Maybe not at Manchester United because he just dominated that left-hand side. But I put him in, and I'm probably a bit sick now because good forwards have missed out on my team because of Ryan Giggs, and I have to live with that, unfortunately. But whatever. So we can go back. We'll go back to you, Thomas.
Two centre midfielders. It's Gerrard and Alonso, same as Keane. As I said, I've seen a lot of people in the chat. Some people talk about Fabinho, maybe another 3 or 4 years of playing the way he is, you could say. It's just that it's too short a time span.
Yeah.
They're talking about 30 years in the Premier League. So, for me, it's Gerrard and Alonso, two unbelievable players, symbolised everything what was good about Liverpool during that period. As Mascherano, like you said, You know, Keane, another great player, someone that I couldn't stand, to be honest with you, when he played for Liverpool, because again, he was a little vicious little fuck, you know, that way, and was always getting stuck in and was always niggly, you know, typical South American type temperament on him, you know, that sort of way. But yeah, Gerrard and Alonso. Gerrard's obviously up there, the greatest midfielders ever seen in England. But the two boys, I mean, 100%.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's an easy choice, really, isn't it? Like when you're looking at Liverpool's players, and you can make a case. And I know Garrett is a huge Jordan Henderson fan, and as I am myself. But you know, them two boys were sensational, and under a great manager as well with Rafa Benitez. You know.
Yeah, look, but you know what? I was talking to the lads earlier, and I was saying, you know, I'd love to put Henderson in. You know, that way, I don't think he's a better footballer than Gerrard and Alonso. Do you know what I mean? But for what he gives, his energy, his desire, as I said, it's like the Carragher thing. You know, that way, sometimes it's more off the pitch.
Yeah, leadership.
You know, than on the pitch. You know?
Leadership, you know what I mean?
Those two are just so good. Couldn't do it. You know,
for me, Tomo, for me, I would love seeing players getting knocked and coming back and giving two fingers and giving two fingers. Yeah. And we've seen it a lot with Henderson. Now, obviously, you know, Alonso and Gerrard stick out miles, but I love that player who sort of has to work for it. You know, Neville, you know, would have had to work for it,
sort of thing.
Yeah. You know, listen, it didn't come easy to Beckham either, lads. You know, there was times I went over to watch him train at times, and he'd be there for hours. You know, I shouldn't be saying that as a Liverpool fan that I was watching Beckham train, but listen, I had a contact at Carrington at the time, so I just love that.
Yeah, a player that was him and Hanover as well is McManaman. You know, obviously left under the cloud with the whole Bosman thing, and another mention who again another bad cloud, but Coutinho, he set the league on fire for a couple of years at Liverpool.
Connection could be dropping here now.
Look, I know it's a controversial one, but Coutinho, man, he was one of the most dangerous players in the league for a couple of years off that left hand side. Yeah, he cut in on that right. You're saying this game over. You know, he's scoring, but again, thought the grass was greener, and ultimately it hasn't been. So
yeah, no, I'm only joking, Tom. Coutinho was a great player, and you're right, cutting in onto that right foot, he's shooting from bleeding everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, if he was 35 yards out, it was still a chance that he was going to bleed and ping one in, and maybe didn't do it enough. Probably a criticism, but for a few years he was absolutely brilliant for Liverpool. And I think, you know, I think at a time when Liverpool maybe needed that sort of player, Gerrard was probably coming to the end of his career. Him and Sturridge came in and gave him that, and then Suarez sort of overshone them or whatever. But yeah, interesting shout for Coutinho. And the McManaman shout was interesting, is he doesn't get a lot of love, but as a player, we've done shows before and we spoke about, you know, some of the lads on the pod that are older even than me that would, you know, I'm 40, like, so I remember back all through the Premier League, but, you know, lads who'll be older that would be, you know, more analytical at the time in the 90s of the game. And, you know, McManaman was just amazing, you know what I mean? But he doesn't get that respect. He doesn't get, maybe it is because of the way he left. And he went on to have a very good career after, you know, he was a key player for Real Madrid, winning, what was it, 2 Champions Leagues?
Scored in one of them, you know, and this is the thing, as I said, I'm looking back and obviously we know Liverpool, you know, that most of the team has been in the last, say, 10 years, you know, that way that we're picking here, with the exception of 1 or 2. But McManaman is the standout from the 90s, along with someone else, obviously, that's in my team around that period. But as you say, unbelievable player. McManaman, a different type of player than I don't think you see very often in the Premier League, especially around that period, you know, but just didn't get in my team, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, that's a good show. So that's you, Tom. You've got recap, you've Reina in goal, you've got a back three of Hyypiä, Van Dijk and Carragher, you've got 2 wing backs essentially of Trent and Robbo, and you've Gerrard and Alonso in the midfield. So that's, you're going to move on to your forwards now in a minute. Gary, we've the same bleeding players. You've got Van der Sar, you've got Neville, Irwin, Stam and Rio in a back 4. You've got a midfield 3 with Keane, Scholes and Beckham, and then we'll come on to your forwards in a minute. But Keane, you still owe me what do you want me, 2 wide players, is it?
Yeah, 2 wide players. Yeah,
so for you to the rules.
So I want to go with my left midfielder first. Now, look, I know he wasn't really Premier League era. He was only the early years, but I'm going to throw him in on the basis of technicality. I know it kind of goes against the grain, but I'm going John Barnes. People talk to me, like, I didn't get the chance to watch him live, but I've watched videos of him. Like, most of my family are all Liverpool fans, and they talk to me about John Barnes, like he was a sensational footballer. And like to watch back clips of him and see how good of a footballer he was. He gets in on my left-hand side. I think he'd excel in this team. Right-hand side, again, I don't know if I might get shot for this in the comments, but Mo Salah. Mo Salah has to get into this team. His production at Liverpool, like, he came in like after underperforming at Chelsea, and people said he was going to be a flop. I'll hold my hands up here and I'll say straight out, I was unsure when Liverpool signed him. I was like, after seeing him at Chelsea, I was like, this could go either one or two ways. And he's after coming in, and he's like, his production, his goal scoring, and his overall consistency, like at Liverpool. Even this season, people might say he isn't having his best season. He's still Liverpool's top goal scorer, and he was top goal scorer in the league for quite a long time until Harry Kane's after kicking on now again in the last kind of couple of weeks in terms of the goal, race for the golden boot. He's after passing Salah and Fernandes out. But look, I have to go Mo Salah on the right. I know you've had other great right wingers in the past, but when you look at him and his overall impact in terms of winning the league, winning the Champions League, very big part of that. And he had a kind of a similar season to Ronaldo did when he scored the 42 goals. I believe it was it the 17 or 18 or 18-19 season? Comments might let me know. He scored 44 goals in a season, which is great for a winger. So I would go Salah and Barnes on the two wings.
I watched John Barnes when I was younger, and John Barnes, I don't think people realise how good John Barnes was.
My God.
Like, this fella he was played on the left wing for Liverpool. And when he went to the Premier League, he was more of a central midfield player because injury sort of derailed him. He dropped deep into the midfield, and that was because he got bad injuries. But my God, John Barnes as a left winger was absolutely sensational. It was one of the, I know a lot of lads that do this pod, he's the best player they've seen. You know what I mean? John Barnes is absolutely sensational. I'll let you have him because
wasn't appreciated by his country either, Keita.
No, Jesus, no. He wasn't at all. And it was the era as well, you know. I think, you know, the racial issues that went on. John Barnes came to Liverpool, he suffered a lot of racial problems as well. You know what I mean? It was just a different era. It's hard to get your head around, but we let you have Barnes because I didn't put Robson in, but I gave him an honourable mention. But yeah, John Barnes and Mo Salah, good choices. You know, again, 4-4-2 for Kane, Alisson, Trent, Robertson, Van Dijk, Kippier, Alonso, Gerrard, Barnes and Salah. I don't think you'll get too many disagreeing with you there. Your forwards might be make or break for you here because there's a few options and it'll be interesting to see how you go. So we're on to our forward players now. So what we'll do is I'll let Thomas go again on this. So Tom, you're going with what? Three up front. Right.
Three up front. Many do you want? Do you want to trade them?
Give me the trade them and we'll talk about it.
So obviously Salah has to be in, without a doubt. For me, he's absolutely unbelievable player. Not going to echo what Keane says, but everything he says is on the money, you know. It was a toss-up, the next player, to be quite honest with you. It was between Suarez and Fernando Torres. For me, Torres at the time, I absolutely loved him. It's a guilty pleasure of mine how good he was for Spain that time as well, and for Liverpool. The flowing gold locks, he had everything, had absolutely everything demanded. The goal against Blackburn, catch on the volley over the shoulder, had everything, but he didn't make it. It's Suarez. We picked Luis Suarez. As much as the whole everything and the biting, you have to take it all. You have to take it all with Suarez. It's every bit of him. No pun intended. But the man was absolutely sensational. It was actually a pleasure to watch him in the Premier League. It really was. Third player then, look, he's not necessarily a left-sided forward, but it's Robbie Fowler. When I first started watching football, Liverpool, it was Robbie Fowler. I know Michael Owen won the Ballon d'Or and everything else, won the league with United. I could have thrown him in and had an absolute mare in the comments, but it's Robbie Fowler. The noseband. Just every time I seen him, that noseband on, wicked left foot, smashing goals in left, right, and centre. It didn't matter how it came to him. So those three for me, absolute goal machines, the three of them, you know.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to be short on goals there, Tom. You know what I mean? And look, I think they're great choices. I agree with everything you said there about Torres. I fucking love Torres. Torres leaving Liverpool broke my heart a little bit. And it's the last player. It's not that I stopped caring about football, but it's sort of, you know, after that, you're like, you know, shit happens. Do you know what I mean? Just get on with it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was 30 years old. You know what I mean? I wasn't a young player crying at Fernando Torres leaving, but it was just such, you know, it was like he was made for Liverpool, and everything. You're right, you know, the flowing locks, you know, everything about him. He was a poster boy. He was everything. You know what I mean?
Outstanding.
But he was as strong as an ox. He was quick. He was unbelievable, and he didn't come across as arrogant and all. He was just the sort of player you could really love, you know. And yeah, but I don't understand why you went with Suarez, because, you know, you take the rough with the smooth with him. But
that's it. We all love a player like that. We all love a player like Cantona. You have to take it. You know that
just wants to win. Just wants to win.
Yeah,
you'd have him every day of the week in your team.
Yeah, and it is. It's look what he's done afterwards as well. You know, Suarez goes on to Barcelona and fucking wins Champions League, and now on chance of winning a league with Atletico. You know what I mean? Like he's a winner. That's what even the handball in the World Cup against Ghana.
Yeah. We'd all do it. We'd all do it.
What a save,
but it was him. It had to be him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and then the celebration in the tunnel made it better. You know, brilliant.
Unbelievable. I love his share house, and he's one of the best I've seen. But brilliant. Good choices. Keane, I'm going to come to you now and get your two forwards.
Comments are going to kill me here, but I'm going to have to say it straight out. I went to two forwards for me who have terrorised me as a United fan watching United versus Liverpool down the years. I'm going with Suarez and Torres. I love Robbie Fowler, great player. I didn't see Robbie Fowler towards kind of, I suppose, the end of his time. I didn't see him in his prime. So for me, I don't throw him in that regard. Great footballer. I always hear great, fantastic things about him. He's a Liverpool legend. But for me, watching kind of United Liverpool games down the years, them two lads terrorised us. And look, them two up front as a partnership, I think, would tear any defence apart. Like Suarez could even drop off even into that kind of the kind of centre forward role, do you know what I mean? And kind of drift around and get involved in the play as well. And Torres could be that kind of striker up front, be the focal point. But yeah.
The comments are killing you now, Keane, because similar to John Arne Rees over Andy Robertson. Read the room, pal. Read the room. But no, great choices.
Hey, now change the stand, Colin, will you? Be controversial.
Yeah.
Do you know what though? I thought Robbie Fowler probably would have been the more preferred option for Liverpool fans. To be quite honest, they had one of the two lads. To be fair, like I think he's up there Liverpool folklore, like in terms of being a legend. Like I think obviously, look, Michael Owen is obviously another option when you think about, you know, the winning the Ballon d'Or and kind of breaking in at a young age and kind of banging in the goals on a consistent basis. Like he was a fantastic footballer. It's pity kind of injuries kind of hampered him. But look, I'll go with Suarez and Torres just on the basis of times playing against Manchester United. Two absolute threats up front, and kind of like they're. When you look at top Premier League strikers in the Premier League era, two of them are up there. Do you know what I mean? So I think I'll go with Suarez and Torres.
Good choices. And so that rounds off the two lads' teams. And, you know, two great teams, like a lot of similarities. I know the different formations threw up different sort of options there, but yeah, two great teams, and it just goes to show, you know, the good players, people like good players. But you touched on something there, Keane, about, you know, Robbie Fowler. He was like the scallywag that done good, you know. When we talk about the boy that done well, Robbie Fowler is the epitome of that for Liverpool fans, because you know everything about him was just like he could have been anyone. Do you know what I mean? And it's the last of that era, you know. After that, sort of Michael Owen comes in and it's all media trained, and you would have seen the same at Manchester United. The players are all sort of, you know, the times changed, and Robbie Fowler was just he was called God, you know what I mean? Liverpool fans loved Robbie Fowler. But you said it, Tom, some of the goals he scored were just fucking ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was absolutely lethal player from a young age. And again, one who suffered with injuries. Gar, what do you make of the lads' teams? Any surprises or?
No. I just, because I'm looking at continental formation, I'm gonna sway with Thomas. I just think his front three is off the planet. Like, you know, Fowler could score goals anyway. Suarez as well. Torres. You look, they just give you everything, don't they? Really.
No, Salah. He went.
Sorry, Salah. Apologies. Sorry. And Salah. Listen, Salah. You know. Is
not much of a goals,
yeah.
Kind of says
it's close for Keane now. He probably missed the Robbie Fowler that week. The three of us would have saw as well. His finishing prowess was off the charts. Like, you know. And
another shithouse as well.
Yeah.
Another one that loves to mix it as well, you know. That you wouldn't mess with that front three, I tell you.
100%.
You know, you wouldn't want to put against them, you know. Even Salah at times can be a little aggro, you know.
Exactly, and you need that. But that wraps up the choices of the Liverpool 11. So, Gar, I'm going to come back to you. You've gone with a front three. Let me hear it.
Cantona misses out, Tom, all right? I know you're an old school United fan. I absolutely love Eric Cantona for his elegance, for you know what he brought to United at that time. I think he was a bargain. The whole aura of him, you know. But technically, I just loved, you know. There's a picture in this house, believe it or not, signed of him in midair going to trap a ball. I just thought that elegance. Keita would know I'm a big Dennis Bergkamp fan. Yeah. And from people who can, you know, who will bring people into play or score just magnificent goals. For me, you know, I thought he was out of this world. Wouldn't get down on a lot of people's in the chat as well. But the front three I stuck with was Rooney, Van Nistelrooy.
Yeah.
And I'm going to stick Ronaldo in there because I think he sort of dragged not an amazing United team for that 2 years before he went, but he was asked to stay for 2 years by Ferguson, and he did well in those 2 years, to be fair to him, which obviously makes him to go on to be one of the best players in the world. So for me, that's my three. Van Nistelrooy, lads, I just thought Real was unbelievable.
It's the best number 9 I've ever seen.
Unbelievable.
He was a joke. He was a joke.
Yeah. Yeah, he was his strength, his finishing prowess. He could get around the pitch as well. He wouldn't just sit around the box. He'd do everything. Oh, Jesus, look at that. Don't be too hard on them, Dan. No, but seriously, I think Real was out of this world. Rooney, I love a street footballer. I love players who, you know, sometimes, you know, you just knew that kid was out playing all the time. When he banged that goal in for Everton against Arsenal from, you know, 35 yards out, you just knew that kid was going to go and do something. You know, not you know, wouldn't have been to me and Keith's liking at times. But seriously, a street footballer, you don't get made him these days, unfortunately. But he was something different that England didn't produce a lot of. For me, incredible player, went on to do incredible things. Not a great manager, by the way, but
do you know what does it for me, Gar, as well? Like the amount of goals he scored without being a number 9. You know, he was played on the left of a 3, or he was played as a 10. Later on, even deep, he's still 250 something goals for United, 260 something. You know, outstanding player. That's my front three personally. I leave Cantona out as well, if I'm being honest. Can't make space from with them 3, you know. Outstanding.
Yeah, I agree with that as well.
Go ahead, Keane, yeah.
I agree with that front 3 as well. Yeah, like I was thinking coming on, I was like, will Wayne Rooney make it in? I was thinking, will Wayne, because obviously I've watched different kind of channels and Rooney gets left out. sometimes, you know, even on United shows or like other rival fans shows. So I'm absolutely over the moon that Wayne Rooney's in that team.
Okay, now they're not real football channels are watching me.
Yeah, you need to get on, and yeah, we'll do our best. I'll tell you, I had a front two, and I had Rooney and Van Nistelrooy as well. For the same reasons that Gar has said, Rooney, street footballer. We spoke about Robbie Fowler a minute ago about being, you know, just that sort of, you know, boy off the streets, and Rooney's the exact same. He's just some bleeding little scruff off a council estate, you know what I mean? That was just out kicking balls, you know. You hear the stories of him, you know, he's out with his mates when he's professional footballer and all, and he's out having a kick about with his mates, you know. He just loves to play football, and as much as you can hate him, as a rival, as much as you can sort of, he can get on your nerves and all that, he's such a good fucking player, you know. And I think, Keane, you touched on, you're glad that he got in, and it's interesting, you know, that United fans probably see it in the sense that others don't rate him. Now, obviously, me and Gar don't speak for the whole of Liverpool fan base, but you know, it's also interesting that we've both gone with Rooney, because I just think he had it all. You know, you said it, Tom. He played everywhere. Do you know what I mean? And he still banged in goals. Ridiculous. Van Nistelrooy, I agree, is one of the best centre forwards I've seen in the Premier League. He was an absolute fucking dead eye. You know, didn't score many outside the box, but you got that many inside the box. You know what I mean? You wouldn't be, you wouldn't be putting an X beside him for that. But there was other players, you know, Robin van Persie's getting a lot of love in the chat.
York,
you know,
York, Cole,
and Cole,
Mark
Hughes.
Solskjaer as well has to get a mention. You know, 10 years at United.
No,
he's very.
Teddy Sheringham. Teddy Sheringham.
Sheringham as well. That's a good show.
Carlos Tevez. Dimitar Berbatov. See, Tevez, right? Why not? Because he went to City. You know what I mean? He was a bit of a hothead. You know what I mean? Like, but as a player,
if you listen to Rooney though, Keith, Rooney says he was the best player or his best forward partner he played with Tevez, which is interesting. Like, you know, that way, considering obviously it was only 2 years, but obviously we won everything in those 2 years. You know, but
well, similar type of players, wouldn't he? Like, they were both that sort of
scruffy little players, as you say. You know, but unbelievable. Berbatov as well. I can't remember how many rows I have at my outlet over Berbatov, because he'd score 5 1 week and wouldn't score at 10 games. He's very like that. But
so which side are you on? You were defending. You were.
I couldn't stand him at times.
I loved him. Was all about.
But then he put the hat trick in against ourselves, and all was forgiven. Do you know what I mean?
That's allowed. But yeah, there was some great strikers. York and Cole, that treble winning season, you know, they were brilliant. Sheringham done a great job. Another one we were talking about earlier, Gar, was Louis Saha, a player that suffered with, you know, injuries. You know, it didn't pan out for him at Manchester United, but you know,
was in Old Trafford, Keith, and the lads when United played Fulham. You know, Fulham beat them 2-1. My wife is a mank, by the way, lads.
We're spending a lot of time on training grounds and stadiums.
But no, we were in Old Trafford the day that Fulham beat United. I knew sure it was 2-1, and when I say it was probably one of the best centre forward performances, Louis Saha ran United ragged, and I actually turned to Linda and I said, bet you United sign him. And he went and did it. He was unbelievable, lads. When I say he bounced off defenders, he had strength, he had pace, he could bring people into play. But it's such a shame that his injuries, you know, didn't give him the impact, I suppose, that he would have had, because he was different gravy, lads.
You know, and that was 6 or 7 seasons. You know, in fairness to him, he did have a good career then with Everton. You know, with a few years there where he was the main man, but you're right, I liked him a lot. And you know what I think killed him as well? He missed that penalty against Celtic in the Champions League. And I think the fans at that point just said, had enough of him. You know, and I don't think he lasted much longer than that. I think that might have actually been his last year, 2007. And he was gone then, you know, that way. So, we are right, he was underrated at times, you know.
Yeah, very good player. But when you look at it, and it's probably similar, you know, if I was to say the best Manchester United team I've seen in the Premier League was the 08 sort of Manchester United team. It wasn't the treble winning team, and it wasn't Ferguson's first team. It was that treble winning team. Not the treble team, the European Cup winning team with Rooney, with Ronaldo. And like I said, Ronaldo didn't make my team only because I didn't put him on the right for Beckham, I felt he flourished afterwards. I should have put him on the fucking left. I don't know what I was thinking. But however, you know, that team was sensational. But the midfield was just absolute jobbers in that squad. You know, it was, you're talking about Carrick was a good player, like Fletcher was playing, Park was playing.
Love Park.
You know, Park was a great player, the type of squad man you need. But these were the type of players that was never built on a midfield, and Liverpool's league winning team as well was very similar.
100%.
You have this, it's nearly a parallel team, because you have the front three at Liverpool last year, you had the front three at United, and you just had workman team midfield in there, you know, and it was a solid defense behind that, and it's just so, you know, parallel what the two teams were like.
Hargreaves was very good that year sitting as well. Owen Hargreaves, before that injury,
another one with injuries.
Can't stand him. Can't stand him at all. He makes his living off that season at United, to be honest with you. Now he won it with Munich and all that, but you see him on BT, Scholesy and Rio, I'm sure they're looking at him saying, you are muck, mate. You know, we've seen it on the table more than we've seen it on the pitch. So Hargreaves for me.
It must be frustrating when you have a player like that, you know, that is a good player and has pedigree and is injured all the time, you know. I mean, we've seen at Liverpool as well with players, and you know, it must be a bleeding nightmare when you see them and you just can't. Look, at Liverpool, Joel Matip for me is one of the best centre backs in Europe. He's never fit. Do you know what I mean? He can't stay fit, and it's stupid little injuries that keep him out. You know, so there's always players that frustrate you like that. But look, it's funny. The teams are very similar. They're nearly identical the way we've gone. So thanks, lads, for coming on. I've kept this for over an hour and a half. Robbie G says Kate is another one. Yeah, that's always injured and just could be, you know, in FIFA, I'm sure he's great when injuries don't matter, but in real life, it's just so frustrating. And there's players like that all down through the years. But anyway, what we'll do, I'll put these up on our Twitter page. We'll get the teams up and we'll put it to a vote to see what the people think who was the most dangerous team. Like I said, it's a bit of a blade mad one, because the United fans are putting up the Liverpool teams and the Liverpool fans are putting up the United team support. However, so look, lads, I just want to thank you for coming on. Keane, like I said, I've been on plenty of your shows. Thanks very much for coming on and doing this tonight.
Thanks very much, lads. Thanks very much for having me on. Look, again, as I said, it's great to come on a Liverpool channel. I've been on many different Man United channels, and it's kind of good to come on a rival channel and actually, you know, get your perspective on our football club. Do you know what I mean? It's good to see that. And look, again, I'd love to get you guys on my channel again. And you know, it's just good to be here.
Yeah, no worries. Look, it's. I think it's important that you can go on channels and it's not snidey and it's not fucking, you know, any ridiculous carry on. Because I say all the time, the biggest clubs are Manchester United and Liverpool. They're so alike. You know what I mean? And they're the only clubs that really count in England, in fairness. But you know, it's great to have you on. And Tom, thanks very much for jumping on as well. Great to have you.
Thanks, yeah, pleasure coming on, man. Yeah, really appreciate it. Obviously, I don't know how the feelings are going to be now after the result tonight. And then on Thursday, you know, we might be busy on Thursday nights next season now. But
you had to get that day again, didn't you?
I had to, you know, just at the end there. Hope the comments enjoyed that one, you know. Thanks for having me on, Keita.
No problem at all. And before I let you go, lads, give a shout out to where the people can find you if they want to check out your shows. Keane, where can they get you?
Yes, you can catch me over on the weekly Armchair Kickoff podcast. We cover everything Manchester United, but also we do cover the London clubs as well, such as Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, and we do have an all-women's podcast over there as well, Three Devils and a Gunner as well, so do check us out. We have our Manchester United versus Liverpool preview tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Good stuff. And Tom, what about yourself?
Yeah, the Offside Trao podcast on Monday nights. Obviously, we have like a Premier League roundup show, match of the day style. And that's on our website, the offsidetrap.ie, or on YouTube, as I said. But three lads, obviously, two United fans and a Leeds fan. So yeah, there's be war. Don't watch last night's episode.
Good stuff. And Gar, thank you very much for joining me as usual, my friend.
Thanks, Keith. Lads, absolute pleasure to meet you, Keane and Tomo.
Thanks,
I'm sure we'll see you down the road very, very soon, lads.
Appreciate it.
And thanks for everyone in the chat for having like I said, a bit of laugh, a bit of buzz. We just said we tried something different for the week that's in it, fill in a bit of content. So thanks for joining us tonight. We've been the Fatback 4 special, and we'll see you all again soon.